Hare Krishna.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Ananta Kori Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, all glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Keshav Prabhu. Hare Krishna. The day becomes blissful after such a ecstatic kirtan, right? Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice kirtan earlier. Very ecstatic. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiryet Shavtam Swa Katha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Hridayantastohya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki Shri Gauratai Ki Jai Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai Shri Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Janant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So today we'll be covering Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 9th canto, chapter 1. King Sudyumna becomes a woman. So first we hear king, right? So we assume that he is a male and then he becomes a woman. So it must be very interesting. There is a change of gender here. We'll cover the very first verse. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 9th canto, chapter 1, verse 1. Shri Rajo Vacha Manvantrani Sarvani Tvaktoktani Shutani Me Viryani Ananta Viryasya Hares Tatra Kritani Cha Shri Rajo Vacha Manvantrani Sarvani Tvayoktani Shutani Me Viryani Ananta Viryasya Hares Tatra Kritani Cha Shri Rajo Vacha Manvantrani Sarvani Tvayoktani Shutani Me Viryanyananta Viryasya Hares Tatra Kritani Cha. Shri Rajo Vacha Manvantrani Sarvani Tvayoktani Shutani Me Viryani Ananta Viryasya Hares Tatra Kritani Cha. Shri Raja Uvacha. King Parikshit said, Manvantrani, all about the periods of the various manus. Sarvani, all of them. Tvaya, by you. Uktani, have been described. Shutani, have been listened to. Me, by me. Viryani, wonderful activities. Ananta Viryasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has unlimited potency. Hare, of the Supreme Lord, Hari. Tatra, in those Manvantara periods, Kritani, which have been performed, Cha, also. Translation by His Divine Grace S. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. King Parikshit said, "My Lord, Shukdev Goswami, you have elaborately described all the periods of the various Manus, and within those periods the wonderful activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has unlimited potency. I am fortunate to have heard all of this from you." There is no purport, but to cover the very context, we'll cover next few verses. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 9th Canto, Chapter 1, verse 2, 3, and then 4. Satyavrata, the saintly king of Dravidadesh, who received spiritual knowledge at the end of the last millennium by the grace of the Supreme, later became Vaivasvata Manu, the son of Vivaswan, in the next Manvantara period of Manu. I have received this knowledge from you. I also understand that such kings as Ikshvaku were his sons, as you have already explained. O greatly fortunate Shukdev Goswami, O great Brahman, kindly describe to us separately the dynasties and characteristics of all those kings, for we are always eager to hear such topics from you. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana Timrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, Parikshit Maharaj, he desired to hear more about the various Manus and the kings that descended from the Manus. And in the last chapter of Canto 8, we heard how Matsya Avatar, the fish incarnation of the Lord, appeared, and he saved King Satyavrata in the last millennium, so the previous day of Brahma, right? And how he was saved. And there is an equivalent story among the Christians that we hear of. What is that called? Noah's Ark, right? The big boat that had all different species and the saints and so forth, and they were saved by the Lord. So there is an equivalent story, very identical, very similar. So here, after hearing Matsya Avatar, King Parikshit hears that the same King Satyavrata who was given the knowledge of the Vedas, right? Veda means knowledge. So the knowledge by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the heart, right? In his heart. And the various sages also received that knowledge. However, did he go back to Godhead? No, Lord wanted him to perform one more, activity, various activities in this world, in this material universe. So he was born as son of Vivaswan. And we had earlier covered how Aditi had those 12 sons, and the oldest one is Vivaswan, the sun god. Right? He's the presiding deity of the sun planet. And so, because he is son of Vivaswan, his name is Vaivasvata Manu. At the time of birth, he was given the name Shraddha-dev. So when you perform the Shraddha ceremonies, towards the forefathers, that's also towards him, to satisfy him. And of course, all ceremonies and all yagyas that we perform are for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? Bhoktaram yagyatapsam sarva lok maheshwaram surhidam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. Now this verse in the 6th canto, 47th verse, is also known as peace formula. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam. So who's the final benefactor of all the sacrifices? Is Lord Krishna. And he's also known as Yagya Purusha. So when doing the fire sacrifices, you offer various oblations and you say Swaha, Swaha is his wife. So you are giving it to the mother, those offerings, that please deliver it to the father, Yajna Purusha. Bhoktaram Yagatapsam Sarvalok Maheshwaram. I am the supreme proprietor of all different worlds, not just these material universes, but also spiritual universes, everything that is there. Suruhidam Sarvabhutanam. I am the most dear friend of all living entities. Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. And one who knows this, these three factors, he is at peace. And one who doesn't know this, he is disturbed, he is in anxiety, right? We can look at it from other perspective. And the peace is lasting. So when you have this knowledge. So here, Vavasvata Manu, his story narrates. But before narrating the story of the Manus, I briefly cover it, then we'll go to some of the philosophy aspect, is where he's covering the various Manus and so forth. Vavasvata Manu, he did not have a son, right? Initially. He later had 10 sons. And so he was disturbed, as any father, in any person who's married, he would like to have sons, so that there is a ceremony called Pindadan. And in Bhagavad Gita, Arjun gives that one of the reasons, like if there won't be any sons, proper sons, right? Obedient with the samskars and with good qualities, then the Pindadan ceremony, the offering to the forefathers won't be done, and then, all the generations would fall down, and even the forefathers won't be satisfied. So here, he wanted a son, and his spiritual master is Sage Vashishta. Now we earlier covered, Sage Vashishta was born of Varun and Mitra. Yeah, no. So, Vashishta Muni and Agastya Muni. We talked about test tube babies, right? So, they were like the test tube babies in the earthen pot. The semen of Mitra and Varun Dev, from there, these two personalities came into being. So it's very interesting. Wow. Science are recognizing now, but it has already been covered in our Shastras. It has already happened, and people don't even pay attention. They just continue to move forward because there are more amazing things that are going to be discussed. And one of them is going to be in this particular chapter. So here, Vavasvata Manu, he wants a son. He, puts this request in front of his spiritual master, Vashishta, Sage Vashishta, and Sage Vashishta arranges for this nice yajna to be performed so that he may have a son. His wife, however, who was sustaining on, before I go there. So, Shukdev Goswami already addressed that it will take hundreds of years to narrate all the events of all the Manus and their following kings. So, Maharaj Parikshit doesn't have all the time. He only has 7 days, right? And more than 4 days have already passed at this time. So, as the narration continues, we are in the 9th canto, and here he is going to address very specific, and then I was able to correct some of the items from other Puranas, some details that we'll also be able to share. So this ceremony is being prepared for, and before it starts, Ms. Vavasvata Manu's wife, Shraddha, that's the mother. So his wife, she approaches the priest, and she puts her desire that she would like to have a daughter. So when the chief priest says, make the oblation in the fire for the child, the priest remembers that she had requested a daughter, right? So he changes the mantra for a daughter, and he makes the offering. And what happens? As per the effect of the mantra, a daughter is born. Well, Vavasvata Manu, it is satisfied that a child is born. And he names her Ila. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that even though a female child is born, a daughter is born, Vavasvata Manu says, okay, I have at least, have a child. And he names the child Ila, and he's very affectionate. However, since he wanted a son, after some time he comes back to Vasishtha Muni and he says, well, it is a cause of lamentation that when such a sacrifice is done, the effect comes out to be contrary to what we started with. And Vasishtha Muni at that time, meditates, and he is able to find out that, oh, what was the cause? He says, but don't worry. With my own prowess, I would be able to change her into a male. So he prays to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ila becomes a male. Just by that prowess, right? Meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this girl becomes a man. And he names Ila as now Sudyumna. Prince Sudyumna is there. He is very valiant, very handsome, very obedient son. So once Prince Sudyumna, he was going with various ministers, arcade, Kshatriyas, they go on arcade to the forest to practice their skills. And in the Purāṇas, there is a story where King Sudyumna, as he was chasing a deer, a male deer, reindeer in this case, the female deer signals her husband to kind of like go near the edge of forest because she was not thinking that he will be able to save himself. So sometimes it just so happens that somebody takes a sharp turn. So the deer takes a sharp turn, but King Sudyumna on his horse and his ministers, as they are following, they are not able to take as sharp a turn. So there is a Sukuma forest. He enters the edge of Sukuma forest. And instantly what happens? He's turned into a woman. He's surprised. All of a sudden you lose your strength and all your capability and you feel like your body has suddenly changed. And he was surprised as how this happened. So when Shukdev Goswami is describing this, Parikshit Maharaj suddenly stops. He's like, how did it happen? It is amazing that, first he was born as a girl, then he was changed into a man, and then again, in this instant, this has happened. So here, very nicely, Shukdev Goswami explains that once it so happened, when this place is near the Mount Meru, the Kailash Parvat area and all, where Lord Shiva resides. And once Lord Shiva and Parvati, they were, together, in conjugal, together, and they were not appropriately dressed. And some sages wanted to meet Lord Shiva, but then when they approached, Shanakarishi and different Shanakarishi and others, so they suddenly saw Lord Shiva and Parvati in that state, and Parvati was not able to, cover herself. So they detested going forward, and they immediately turned back and headed to Badrikashram. However, Goddess Parvati was, she was feeling that this is not appropriate. Anybody they want to meet Lord Shiva, they approach, right? And so she doesn't have all the privacy that she would like to have. And at that time, Lord Shiva, understanding her dilemma, she said that, okay, anyone who would enter this forest, this region, they are male, right? They will turn into a female. Which happens like all the male animals turn into female instantly. Just because of the strength of Lord Shiva's, statement. And even the plants, the male plants and female plants, those categories there, all of them turn into female. So King Sudyumna had just entered this forest, he turned into a female. And all his ministers. Now, the power of material energy is also identified here. That even though he was lamenting and he was wandering from forest to forest because he didn't know how to go back home, because he has just turned into a woman again. And how does he explain? His horse has turned into a mare, and all the ministers have also turned into women. So he's trying to understand what has happened. And as he was going from forest to forest, he comes near an ashram where Buddha, son of Soma, was residing. Right? So from Vivaswan comes Vavasvata Manu, and from his sons there will be lineage of Surya Vamsha, right? Solar dynasty. Now Buddha happens to be son of Soma, who is the presiding deity of moon, lunar dynasty, right? So Buddha sees Ila. So we are going to refer when Sudyumna is in the form of a woman, she is referred to as Ila. He is referred to as Ila. So he sees Ila and he desires to marry her. And Ila also being overwhelmed by the potency of the material energy, having a woman body, desires the same. So they get, they decide to get married. However, at the same time, Ila, when returns back to Sage Vasishta, who was, the spiritual master in this case again, requests that how has this happened? And Sage Vasishta, he prays to Lord Shiva that how has this happened? And Lord Shiva, here, gives the boon that, he wanted to satisfy Goddess Parvati as well, yet at the same time, respect, Sage's request, respond appropriately. So he says, 1 month, Sudyumna would be Ila, and the next month would be Sudyumna. So sex would change every, full moon night. Well, at the same time, because previously when he had turned into a woman, he had this remembrance that he was a man and he turned into a woman. So Goddess Parvati, understanding this dilemma that it would be very difficult for Sudyumna to go through these constant changes from month to month, how would he be able to sustain himself? So she gives that extra boon that you would forget. You would completely embrace your condition in this whatever body you get. So you would not have this dilemma. So that's given in other Puranas. And so that is the case. Now Ila and Buddha, they have married. And from them they have a son, Pururava. Right? Now Sudyumna, he was ruler of the world, as Vavasvata Manu entrusted him. But every time he would turn into a woman, they needed a ruler. So populace wasn't satisfied that we only have an alternate month, our ruler there, and then what happens in the other alternate month? So Ikshvaku stepped up. So Vavasvata Manu, he had 10 sons and 1 daughter, Ila. So the oldest son after Sudyumna was Ikshvaku, then Nirga, Sharyati, Deshta, Drashta, Karushaka, Narishyanta, Prashudra, Nabhaga and Kavi. So Ikshvaku, helps in running the world. And as you understand Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, in Bhagavad Gita 4.1, Lord Krishna says, Imam vivasvate yogam proktavam aham avyayam vivasvan manve praha manur ikshvakve abravit. That this knowledge was given by me to the sun god Vivasvan, who had passed on this knowledge to his son Vavasvata Manu, who had further passed it to Ikshvaku. And from there, the various kings carried on this knowledge. And here, it is said that as Sudyumna was ruling the world, while having, 1 son as Ila and 3 sons as Sudyumna, passed on his ruling before going to the forest for further self-realization to Pururava. So the son who was born of Ila, he became the ruler of the world. And this is where the chapter ends. And there are some nice lessons that we hear. See, in the case of Vedic mantras, how you pronounce makes a big difference, right? Earlier we heard how Tvashta, he pronounced the mantra, those words slowly, that changed the meaning. He was praying to get a son who would be an enemy of Indra, but because he was so much looking for the right pronunciation, he elongated the words, which may change the meaning to whose enemy is Indra, right? So Vatrasu was born, whose enemy was Indra, and he was actually a devotee, Vatrasu himself. So such reversal of, meanings of various mantras happen. And it once happened in Srila Prabhupada, when he was in Vrindavan, and he had his disciples from America and Europe, they were accompanying him. And as in one of the Pandal program, he asked Yamuna Mataji to start reciting. He's like, they know so much, means, so he wanted her to recite, and she was wondering, like she only knew the first 5 verses. So she continued, and just as soon as she was done with the 5th verse, he said, stop. And there was one Indian gentleman, he said, well, it is very nice that they know it, but their pronunciation is short. Right? The pronunciation has those faults. Because sometimes, we think that because there are so many stories, if the pronunciation is not right. So Srila Prabhupada, identifying the very heart of the Lord, means his bhavgrahi janadana, right? What bhakta vatsalya. So he said the pronunciation may be short, but the renunciation is perfect. So it is, when you pay obeisances and when you pray something to the Lord, He's looking at your heart. What are you praying for? He's looking at the very essence. And so that's why we chant just by raising our hands, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're chanting this to get engaged in Lord's service, right? For our own purification. And it is not very important to even know the meaning of the mantra. Of course, we always aspire to know what the meaning of the mantra is. And here in this mantra, we are praying to Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan to please engage us in their service. Now, when people are trying to enjoy, asking to be a servant, sometimes may look contradictory to materialist mind, right? Conditioned souls. Well, that is our very nature. Jivera Suruphoya Krishnera Nityadas. Living entity is an eternal servant of the Lord. And since our eternal nature is to serve, no matter where, in which condition we are in, or which state we are in, we are constantly serving. We are serving our family, we are serving our bosses, and we are even serving our employees, if we are in that position. So that's our very nature. Here in this particular chapter, another aspect that comes is, of course, we hear about how the solar dynasty and lunar dynasty started. Lunar dynasty started through Buddha. Buddha, who is the presiding deity of Mercury, Buddha planet, and Ila, right? So Pururava is in lunar dynasty, while the ones coming out from Sudyumna and Ikshvaku, they are in the solar dynasty. Lord Ramchandra appeared in the solar dynasty, and Lord Krishna appeared in the Yadu dynasty, which was lunar dynasty. So they have also been described elaborately later. However, in this particular chapter, one of the interesting aspects were, like as we are engaged in the various services, intelligence is important. Srila Prabhupada said that, we covered this lesson earlier, that once he was opening Bhagavad Gita as it is, and suddenly this was a binding done by the BBT folks, the initial binding, it just fell apart. And he said, how can do it better? How can we do it better? So at that time, Brahmanand Maharaj said that, Prabhupada, we need to be more sincere, then we can do a great job at it. Then we should be able to do it. And Prabhupada said, no. So everyone was shocked, like sincerity is not the reason. He's like, yes, sincerity is required, but also intelligence is required. And Prabhupada also gave some interesting examples of what intelligence is, right? Once, Srila Prabhupada was giving on intelligence, that one man asked another man, are you intelligent? So the second man said, he started looking, searching his pockets. So the first man said, why are you searching your pockets? The second man said, I'm seeing if there is any money. If there is money, then I'm intelligent. And Srila Prabhupada gave this example that this movement, Hare Krishna movement, is going on very nicely because of his intelligence, of course. Srila Prabhupada's intelligence, he's referring to himself. And cooperation of his disciples. So the Krishna consciousness movement started very nicely and has been prospering because of the intelligence of Srila Prabhupada and by the constant cooperation of his disciples. And if there is no money, then where is the intelligence? And sometimes devotees, when they would discuss about different projects with Srila Prabhupada would allow them to have elaborate, plans that we will build this, we'll do this, we'll go on continuing. And then suddenly one disciple asked, but Srila Prabhupada, we are talking of all these projects with expenses in crores of rupees. Where will we get the money? And Prabhupada said, you continue to make the plans, Krishna would provide. Simple. So that's his faith. Such a strong faith and such strong conviction he had. And he instilled that conviction, he passed on that conviction, to his disciples. And if you see, in last 50 years or so, so much has been achieved in ISKCON. Such amazing, it's all around the world spreading the, Krishna consciousness and the knowledge. And of course the books, Srila Prabhupada used to give the example that 50% of whatever funds would come should be given for book distribution, book trust. So that way more and more books should be, done. And he used to, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to call it Brahad Mridanga. Book distribution, as Brahad Mridanga. When it comes to money, we hear about this another example when a sage was offered a platter full of money. There was a picture, shown to Srila Prabhupada that the sage was holding his hands back. And Srila Prabhupada said that you bring that money in front of me and I'll go like this. Because this money I can directly use in serving Krishna. So that is the mindset. He was very conscious of every single paisa that it should be used in the Lord's service. And he gave the example that there can be three kinds of people, right? If somebody sees money on the street, then we also know this example. Shishi Gauratai ki jai. Shishi Radha Madan Mohan ki jai. Shishi Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Janantu Karyavashwaminda ki jai. So we know of this example that if there is some money on the road, then someone seeing that money on the road may just say, okay, I have got nothing to do with money, and may ignore it and move forward. Another person could say, oh, there is this money, no one is claiming it, let me pick it up and put it in my pocket. And then the third person could think, oh, somebody must have lost their money, so he would pick up the money and give it to the person to whom it belongs. Now we already heard Sarva Lok Maheshwaram, right? So everything belongs to the Lord. So everything should be used in the service of the Lord. So that's the mindset of the third person. That everything that I get belongs to the Lord, so everything that I get should be used in the service of the Lord. That's the first class person. Second class person is where the person is saying, oh, I've got nothing to do. That's the, Brahmanvadi. The one who wants to just merge into Brahman and nothing to do with this, material world, thinking that, oh, this world is dukhalayam shashvatam. Jagat mithya, Brahma satya. So that's their mindset. And then the third class person is the one who picks up that money and pockets it, uses it for his own or one's own sense gratification. And Prabhupada gave some very nice example. Once it so happened that Prabhupada, he was in Dallas, and as he was on his morning walk, they passed a mansion, and he said, oh, Hulusaya, the disciples were saying, oh, there is a great, he owns the oil companies. He's a billionaire. And so Prabhupada said, you should preach to him. And the disciples said, well, how can we preach to him? They were not able to respond. And Prabhupada, and one of them did say that we actually gave Bhagavad Gita to the guards, because he has guards at his gates. So one of the guards, we were able to give him a Bhagavad Gita. He said, no, you should knock at his door and tell him that he may have so many guards to protect him, but when death comes, none of them will be able to protect him. And they were wondering, how could we be so strong? So Prabhupada later on showed us with his example in Mayapur. And Prabhupada actually used also the word that you should tell him that he is a thief, and when Yamraj will come, he would punish him. And these guards won't be able to protect. And disciples were surprised, but they were able to realize when Prabhupada showed it by example later on. In Mayapur, there was a a merchant from Calcutta who was visiting Mayapur. So during the morning walk, he was introduced to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada says, so what do you do? So he said, I'm a businessman. And what kind of business do you do? He said, I manufacture glass. And Prabhupada said, where does glass come from? He says, it comes from silicon. Where does silicon come from? It comes from sand. So he said, oh, and sand belongs to God, Krishna, right? So sand belongs to Krishna, so you're a thief. And everybody smiled and laughed at it. And the person also, ignored and continued to smile. So, and as the walk continued, other disciples were asking, other visitors were asking questions. And near the end of the walk, this gentleman was able to come in the front. And he said, but Prabhupada, I also, give donation. I contribute to the Mayapur project. So at that time, Prabhupada said, oh, so you're a small thief. And everybody again chuckled. Such a strong words, but Prabhupada had such an amazing potency. He was such a strong conviction that he was able to move people with his words and make us realize that anything that we are using for sense gratification is actually being a thief, and that would have its own reaction, right? So we should understand that. And when we are talking so much about money, like Lakshmi, whose service is she engaged in? Lord Vishnu. She is always engaged in. So Prabhupada also gave the example of envious people, that they are just third-class men. And sometimes he would use this example very strongly, and he would give very nice stories in respect to that. So he says envious men are like third-class, and they concoct faults in others. Being envious, they find faults, and if they can't find it, apparently, then they manufacture it. So he gives the example that one man was, talking to another man, and about a man that they both had known. He said that other man, that friend of ours, that acquaintance of ours, he's actually a high court judge. The man said, no, that cannot be. He said, no. The first guy said, no, I have actually seen him sitting on the bench. He is a high court judge. And he said, no, okay, even if he is a high court judge, maybe he's not getting any salary. So he's concocting. How could somebody has risen to a recognizable position, significant position? And we all know about the story that Prabhupada shared about Nagnagati Panchu. So once in a village, there was a small child. He would run around naked. His name was Panchu. Not our Panchu, a different Panchu. So, Nagna is naked, Gati is running around, Panchu is the name of the child. So he was named, everybody called him Nagna Gati Panchu. So this child, he grew up and he was a brilliant student. And he topped in his school and he went to the city and then he became a district magistrate. So when he was visiting his village, when people came to know that, oh, he's coming, the old, villagers who were sitting in the, normally they used to sit under a tree, right, a burger tree. They would make a big platform and they would gather there, like panchayat and, just to have some conversation. And they heard, and all the elderly men and people of his age who were his friends, they all rejected. Oh, he was a Nagnagati Panchu. Like not giving him any respect anymore. He was just a naked child running around. So envious people, they cannot take that a simple person has suddenly become very significant. And so we have to be very, very careful. So as devotees, we understand our devotion service, we have to protect from envious people. It's like camphor, right? Camphor, you put it in the open, what happens to it? It just goes away. So you have to protect the camphor, keep it in a nice container, contained, so that we don't get affected by the envious people. So he always, warned us that we have to be very careful in our sadhana and practice. And one of the quote I was reading from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it was a, very enlivening quote. He says that those who are preaching but not practicing, preaching without practicing is just another form of karmakanda ritual. So if you're just preaching but not practicing yourself in your life, then it is nothing but just a ritual. So we have to be very careful and sincere in taking that in our life. So in this particular chapter, we heard about, how the Surya Vamsha and Chandra Vamsha, those two dynasties started. And how Ila and Sudyumna, being the same person, was part of both the dynasties. So that's an amazing story, and sometimes we just hear these stories thinking that, oh, this is just some mythological event that happened in the past. But now, as we are understanding from science, many of these things are getting discovered. So in the past, when you say 1, 2, 3, the following is 4, and you realize that 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 1 is 3, then of course you should accept that the next number is 4. So at this, we'll end this chapter. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Kanthra Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki janant kori Vaishnavand ki jai, Nitai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees. Hare Krishna.